They were never meant to blend in. From the moment they were born, the atmosphere shifted. Teachers misunderstood them. Family tried to silence them. Narcissists were drawn to them like moths to flame, hoping to feed off their light, only to be scorched by something they couldn't comprehend. These aren't your average spiritual people. These are the elite 1% of chosen ones, those forged in fire, sharpened by betrayal, and crowned by silence. They don't seek revenge. They are the consequence. And here's the twist. Even demons know their names and stay back. So why do narcissists try and always fail? What makes these chosen ones immune to manipulation, immune to soul theft, and terrifying to the very forces that once hunted them? Stay with me to the end, because what you'll discover may confirm what you've always suspected about yourself. And if this message hits something deep in your spirit, don't scroll past. Comment "I'm one of them" below and let the others know you're rising. And if you're new here, subscribe. Not just for videos, but to remind yourself that you're not crazy. You're chosen. The ones we're about to speak of are not ordinary souls. They didn't come here to play it safe, blend in, or follow the crowd. These are the elite 1% of chosen ones, those who were forged in fire, not just emotionally, but spiritually. While others were trying to fit in, these souls were being rejected by the very environments that were supposed to protect them. They were misunderstood as children, seen as too sensitive, too intense, or too different. But that difference was never a flaw. It was a signature, a divine imprint. The truth is, they weren't just surviving pain. They were being refined by it. Betrayal didn't destroy them. It carved them into something the enemy would learn to fear. Spiritual warfare wasn't just an attack. It was a classroom, an abandonment. That wasn't punishment. That was sacred separation, a divine setup to prepare them for a mission no one else could carry. You see, narcissists are attracted to light. But this light is different. It's not soft. It's not naive. It's not desperate to be loved. It burns. And narcissists, who feed off admiration and emotional chaos, think they've found another easy source of supply when they meet one of these chosen ones. At first, it looks like control. The narcissist tests boundaries, manipulates with love bombing, plays the victim, and begins to dig into their insecurities. But something strange happens. The chosen one doesn't collapse. Not permanently. They may fall, but they rise with a fire in their eyes that wasn't there before. That's when everything changes. That's the moment the narcissist realizes, this one isn't ordinary. This one can't be broken. This one terrifies me. Because these 1% are not just chosen by name. They are chosen by endurance. They carry scars like sacred symbols. Their silence becomes thunder. Their absence, a haunting. When a chosen one walks away, it's not out of weakness. It's a soul decision. And when they stop explaining themselves, when they stop trying to be understood, something shifts. The narcissist, who once fed off their light, begins to experience spiritual starvation. And more often than not, they realize too late, they weren't dealing with a kind-hearted fool. They were dealing with someone sealed. Someone who has been seen by the heavens and marked by the spirit realm as untouchable. And the most haunting part, demons know their name. Not metaphorically, spiritually. In realms most people don't even believe exist, these chosen ones are recognized. They carry an energy signature that causes chaos in low vibrational environments. Walk into a room, snakes are exposed. Lies start unraveling. Secret enemies grow nervous. Why? Because the presence of a true chosen one doesn't need to perform. It reveals. It activates discomfort in the ones who've been hiding behind masks. That's why narcissists and demonic spirits alike hate them, but can't stop watching them. They know these individuals are mirrors, spiritual detectors of deceit. And the scary part for those entities, the chosen one doesn't always have to speak. Their energy walks in first. But becoming this powerful wasn't a blessing. It was a burden at first. These souls have cried on floors no one knew they slept on. They've begged God for answers that didn't come right away. They've watched people they trusted turn into enemies. And still, they kept their hearts soft. They kept their integrity. That's what makes them dangerous. Because you can't manipulate someone who has already met the darkness within and survived it. You can't intimidate someone who has faced spiritual isolation and found strength in silence. The enemy fears what it cannot control, and these chosen ones are uncontrollable. Now here's the twist most don't understand. When you push these chosen ones too far, when you violate them deeply enough, they activate a part of themselves that is not for everyone to witness. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about drama. This is divine correction. It's the part of the chosen one that carries ancestral fire, generational truth, and spiritual wrath. Not from a place of ego, but from a place of spiritual authority. It's the side that doesn't shout, doesn't warn, doesn't explain. It simply acts. And when that part is activated, narcissists scatter. Demonic spirits flee. Because the chosen one doesn't fight fair, they fight with alignment. And when you're aligned with the divine, you don't need a sword. You are the sword. That's why narcissists run. They don't understand it at first, but something inside them knows. This one isn't like the others. This one didn't fall for my charm. This one doesn't flinch when I withdraw love. This one sees me, truly sees me. And worse, they don't fear me. That kind of inner authority doesn't come from confidence. It comes from calling. And the narcissist, whose entire survival depends on control and confusion, can't function in the presence of someone who sees through the fog. That's why they either try harder to destroy you, or they disappear completely. The world doesn't talk about this kind of strength. They praise popularity, charm, and surface-level power. But real strength, it's quiet, it's patient, it's forged in silence and delivered in divine timing. These chosen ones are rarely celebrated in their early years. They are often mocked, ignored, underestimated. But the same people who laughed eventually grow silent. Not because the chosen one fights back with bitterness, but because their evolution is undeniable. Their glow becomes too bright to dismiss, and those who once tried to bury them suddenly remember. Even demons whisper their name. These are the ones who shift atmospheres, break generational curses, and walk with shadows not because they love darkness, but because they mastered it. They don't need to prove anything. They've been validated by the unseen. And now, wherever they go, they don't chase energy, they attract it. They don't beg for truth, they are the truth. And they don't fear narcissists or demons, because they've already faced their greatest enemy. And it was within. There's something about them, something unspoken, something ancient, something rare. You've probably felt it too, even if you couldn't explain it. The moment a chosen one walks into a room, the atmosphere shifts, even before a word is spoken. There's a frequency in their energy that triggers attention, good and bad. It inspires curiosity in the healed, but provokes fear and obsession in the broken. And that's why narcissists always target them first. Not by accident, but by instinct. It's as if narcissists have a radar for divine light, a sixth sense that detects who's carrying something pure, something divine, something eternal. They are not attracted to weakness. They are attracted to power, especially power that hasn't fully awakened yet. You see, a chosen one often doesn't know how rare they are. They are too humble, too introspective, too busy healing. They don't walk into rooms demanding worship. They walk in carrying silent strength. That's what threatens the narcissist most. The kind of soul that doesn't need the spotlight to shine. To a narcissist, the chosen one is both a challenge and an opportunity. A challenge to manipulate, an opportunity to feed off. Narcissists thrive on admiration, control, and chaos. So when they see someone who radiates peace without effort, compassion without manipulation, and love without strings, they become obsessed. Not with love, but with control. At first, the narcissist wears a mask. They study you, mimic you, mirror your light. They'll make you feel seen, heard, valued. It's the trap. They use flattery as a leash, compliments as chains. But underneath that charm is a plan to make you doubt your worth, question your intuition, and eventually hand over your power. That's the sick irony. They target you for your light, and then try to convince you you never had it. But here's what they don't understand. What they are trying to destroy is actually the very thing that awakens the chosen one's power. Because nothing activates a chosen one's divine purpose faster than betrayal. Nothing sharpens their spiritual discernment more than deceit. And nothing unlocks their sacred fire like heartbreak. Narcissists think they are winning when they confuse you, isolate you, belittle you. But what's really happening? You're being refined. Your vision is getting clearer. Your spirit, more resilient. And eventually, the chosen one stops crying for love and starts calling back their power. That's when the narcissist panics, because the illusion starts cracking. The supply runs dry. The manipulation doesn't land like it used to. Suddenly, the chosen one is calm, detached, clear-eyed, and done. And that shift is terrifying to them, because now, the very person they tried to control becomes the mirror to their darkness. The chosen one no longer reacts, but they reveal. They don't retaliate, but they reflect. The narcissist sees themselves clearly for the first time, and they hate what stays back. But the chosen one, they don't need revenge. Their healing is the revenge. Their glow-up, spiritual evolution, and peaceful power. It haunts the narcissist far more than any argument or confrontation ever could. But let's not sugarcoat the process. Being targeted by a narcissist isn't flattering. It's traumatizing. It drains you, confuses you, makes you question your reality. That's why so many chosen ones go through years of darkness before rising. Because when someone who pretends to love you is actually siphoning your light, it leaves you empty. But here's where it gets powerful. When a chosen one finally sees the truth, they don't just walk away. They transform. The parts of them that were afraid burn away. The parts of them that were people-pleasing dissolve. And in their place rises something the narcissist was never prepared for. The chosen one's darkest divine force. This isn't evil. This isn't revenge. This is sacred rage. It's the divine protector within, awakened. It's the force that says, enough. It's the shield that forms when the soul decides to never be deceived again. That's why narcissists rarely go back to truly awakened chosen ones. They know they've been exposed. And more importantly, they know they've failed. Because the one person they were certain they could destroy became untouchable. You want to know why narcissists always target them first? Because deep down, they sense something sacred. Even if they can't name it, they know it. It's the softness that won't shatter. The love that keeps giving, even when it's not returned. The presence that brings peace and pressure all at once. The energy that makes even demons nervous. It's not just light, it's legacy. It's not just kindness, it's cosmic. It's not just empathy, it's eternal. Chosen ones, hear this. It was never your fault you were targeted. Your love wasn't too much. Your trust wasn't naive. Your light wasn't a weakness. It was their darkness that couldn't stand to be near it. And yes, they tried to break you. But all they really did was wake up a part of you you hadn't yet met. A part of you that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and doesn't need closure. That version of you walks with clarity, with peace, with power. And no matter how charming the next narcissist pretends to be, they'll sense it. That you've seen the game. That you've lived the lie. And that you'll never again forget who you are. So if you've ever wondered why you were always the first target in the room, it's because even in your silence, even in your kindness, your soul was never average. And the ones who feed on fear and control, they always feel it first. But what they meant for harm, the divine used for awakening. And now, you don't just carry light, you carry fire. There are some people who don't need to speak to be known. They don't need to shout to be heard. Their presence alone says everything. These are the chosen ones, not in title, not in popularity, but in spiritual origin. They were not marked by man. No ceremony crowned them. No one clapped for them when their soul was sealed. But in the unseen realm, their name was spoken, their calling was known, and their energy was remembered. Because these individuals carry something that even demons recognize and fear. Not because they are perfect, not because they are loud, but because they carry clearance. A spiritual authority that can't be faked, copied, or stolen. These are the ones whose energy causes dark entities to go silent. The ones who walk into rooms and suddenly secrets can't hide. The ones whose spirit is so aligned with divine truth that even lies tremble near them. You can't train for this. You're either marked or you're not. And the ones who are, they've been through fires most wouldn't survive. They didn't get this power through ease. They earned it in the trenches, through heartbreak, loss, spiritual warfare, and isolation. They were forged in seasons where even heaven seemed quiet. They wept in silence while the world moved on, and yet something inside them refused to die. While others crumbled under pressure, the chosen one transformed. Not instantly, not publicly, but deeply. They weren't just fighting battles in the physical. They were battling spirits in the dark. You see, demons don't fear titles. They don't fear religion. They don't fear noise. They fear authentic alignment. A soul that walks in truth, even when it costs them everything. A soul that isn't seduced by power, praise, or manipulation. A soul that knows how to hear the divine whisper in the middle of chaos. That's what a chosen one is. And when one of them walks into a room, even demons that were hiding in comfort shudder, because the energy is too pure to sit next to deception. Their vibration disrupts darkness. Their peace agitates confusion. Their presence alone exposes everything that has been pretending to be safe. And what's most threatening about them? They don't have to do anything for the shift to happen. They just have to be. Their frequency is coded with divine intelligence. Their light is encrypted with ancient memory. And whether the room is aware or not, the spirit realm always is. That's why they've often been attacked since childhood. That's why they've been betrayed, abandoned, misunderstood, and left out. Because darkness always tries to dim what it knows it can't defeat. Demons saw them coming long before they knew who they were. That's why the attacks felt so personal. That's why the betrayals cut so deep. It wasn't about who they were on the surface. It was about what they carried underneath. The calling, the anointing, the spiritual weight that couldn't be erased no matter how many people tried to break them. And the demons whisper when they approach, not out of confusion, but out of memory. They remember what that soul carries. They remember the lineage. They remember the lifetimes of spiritual war that came before this one. Some chosen ones don't even know the full extent of who they are yet. They just know they've always felt different, always felt watched, always felt like the storm came for them harder than others. And now they are learning. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because you don't walk with this kind of presence by accident. You don't trigger darkness this deeply if you weren't made of light this strong. What makes them more dangerous is their humility. They don't chase power. They don't need attention. Their strength comes from quiet clarity. They know who they are in spirit, even when the world misunderstands their role. They don't seek revenge on those who hurt them. They elevate instead. They don't expose lies with words. They expose them with presence. Because when a chosen one walks in the room, what's fake can't breathe. The energy gets tight. The smiles get shaky. The tension rises. And it's not because the chosen one said anything harsh. It's because their soul just showed up. And everything false knows its time is up. You want to know who the real threat is in any space. Watch who the narcissists avoid. Watch who the manipulators try to silence. Watch who the insecure try to copy, then discredit. 9 times out of 10, it's chosen one whose energy they can't replicate, so they try to ruin it. But it never works. Because what's divinely marked can't be erased. What's sealed in the spirit can't be stolen. Even when the chosen one forgets who they are for a moment, the darkness never does. That's why it attacks. That's why it whispers. That's why it watches. And when that chosen one finally wakes up fully, when they stop people-pleasing, stop apologizing, stop minimizing their gifts, something irreversible happens. Their voice changes. Their eyes sharpen. Their peace deepens. And demons, they stop whispering and start fleeing. Because now, the chosen one doesn't just carry power. They wield it, not to harm, but to heal. Not to control, but to command. They walk in rooms and reclaim territory. They speak and break chains invisible to the human eye. They pray and things shift. Silently, supernaturally, completely. So if you've ever wondered why people get uncomfortable around you without reason, why spiritual attacks come out of nowhere, Why people either love you deeply or seem irrationally intimidated by you. It might be this. Your energy is known by name, not in the headlines, but in the heavens and the darkness. It remembers. It knows exactly who you are, even if you're just beginning to figure it out. There's always a moment, a shift, a quiet turning point that changes everything. In the beginning, the narcissist thinks they are winning. They believe they've mastered the game, manipulated the story, silenced the truth, and secured control. You can see it in the way they speak, the way they look at you like a puppet in their hands. They thrive on your confusion, feed on your self-doubt, and twist your emotions like a puppet master pulling strings. And for a while, the chosen one, yes, even the strong ones, stays in the fog. They beg, they plead, they ask questions, hoping for clarity that will never come. They replay conversations, searching for logic in a world built on lies. And to the narcissist, that looks like control. That looks like power. But what they don't know is that the begging is a storm before the silence. The questions are a bridge to something ancient, buried deep inside the chosen one. Because this kind of soul, this marked, divine, battle-tested soul, never stays broken for long. There's a moment when the chosen one stops chasing answers, stops explaining, stops needing validation, and suddenly, everything shifts. They go quiet, not in defeat, but in alignment. The energy changes. The same person who once cried now simply watches. The one who once reacted now responds with silence. The emotional hooks the narcissist once relied on, they don't catch anymore. The panic games no longer work. The withdrawal no longer hurts. And that stillness, that sacred stillness, is what terrifies the narcissist most. Because it's in that silence that the chosen one returns to themselves. They begin to hear something deeper than confusion. They hear their intuition again. Their spirit comes back online. And what was once an emotional battlefield becomes a sacred exit strategy. No yelling. No theatrics. Just clarity. You see, narcissists don't fear loud exits. They expect them. In fact, they prepare for them. They store screenshots. Craft victim stories. They're always the hero or the target. But when the chosen one simply withdraws, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, without explanation, it sends a jolt into the narcissist's illusion of power. Because now, the script has no ending. There's no fight to manipulate. No reaction to feed on. There's just absence. And absence is the narcissist's worst nightmare. Because it means they are no longer important. No longer central. No longer the god they believed they were in your story. But let's talk about what this shift really is. It's not just walking away. It's the death of the old self. The version of the chosen one that needed approval, that explained their love, that accepted crumbs, dies. And what's born in that silence is something divine. Something clean. Something unshakable. The chosen one begins to glow differently. Their eyes no longer seek. They see. Their heart no longer chases. It chooses. Their soul no longer bends. It stands. They'll try to pull you back in. Suddenly, they miss you. They get it now. They were just afraid. But this time, you're not moved. You've heard the lies before, but now they fall flat. You see the patterns, the games, the charm, and it no longer touches you. That's how you know you've shifted. When the narcissist's voice no longer stays hope, but awakens wisdom. When you're no longer triggered, but tuned in. And you realize, this was never about love. This was about control. This was never about your flaws. It was always about your light. And the silence you now hold, it's not empty. It's sacred protection. And for the narcissist, that calm is unbearable. Because you're no longer performing. No longer dancing in their drama. No longer proving your worth to someone who was committed to never seeing it. And without your energy, they begin to wither. The attention they once received from you was fuel. The chaos was their comfort. But now, you've reclaimed your peace. You've stepped out of the cycle. And you didn't slam the door. You just disappeared. No closure. No fight. No grand exit. Just you, reclaiming the space where your spirit can breathe again. That's the power of the shift. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence. But that silence speaks louder than every word you ever said. It says, I'm done explaining my value. I'm done participating in a story that never honored my soul. I'm done shrinking myself to survive your storms. That's when the narcissist truly panics, not because they love you, but because they lost their grip. And for someone who thrives on control, nothing is more terrifying than a soul they can no longer reach. There's a kind of rage the world doesn't understand. It's not loud. It's not violent. It doesn't throw things or scream. It doesn't post outbursts online or seek pity from the crowd. No, this rage is different. It's sacred, silent, ancient. It lives deep in the bones of the chosen ones, the ones who've been betrayed, misread, abandoned, and underestimated over and over again. The ones who gave love freely and were punished for it. The ones who forgave more than they should have, until forgiveness became fatigue. This isn't the rage of ego. This is divine rage. And when it's triggered, it doesn't destroy for revenge. It rises to correct what has been unbalanced for far too long. Because this rage doesn't come from wounded pride. It comes from spiritual authority. It comes when justice is delayed for too long. When kindness has been mistaken for weakness. When evil grows too confident in its deception. The chosen one doesn't carry rage like a weapon. They carry it like a gavel. And when it falls, it does so with the weight of the heavens behind it. You see, most people think of rage as chaos, a loss of control. But this rage, it's the exact opposite. It's calm, focused, righteous. It doesn't come to punish. It comes to restore. It's the voice of the ancestors, the pain of 1,000 generations, the fire of everything they've endured, and yet survived. It's what erupts when the chosen one, after years of silence, finally says, enough. It's not aimed at petty things. It doesn't show up in petty arguments. It's too ancient for that. It only rises when injustice touches sacred ground, when someone crosses the spiritual boundary that should never be crossed. And when it comes, it changes everything. Because this is the kind of rage that doesn't need to shout. It shifts atmospheres. It awakens warnings in the spirit. It causes demons to scatter and narcissists to freeze. Not because it's destructive, but because it's divinely aligned. And those who felt it never forget it. Narcissists, for example, always believe they have control until the chosen one stops being silent, until the lies no longer land, until the manipulation no longer works. And suddenly, without warning, they come face to face with the consequence of pushing too far. That's when they meet the divine rage. It's not the chosen one's anger they're afraid of. It's the sacred authority standing behind them. Because when that rage is triggered, it's not personal anymore. It's prophetic. It's the moment where the spiritual realm says, no more. And the narcissist realizes too late that what they thought was a game has now become judgment. The chosen one never wanted revenge. That's the irony. They were never seeking to destroy. They just wanted peace, clarity, respect. But when their patience is abused long enough, the divine steps in. That's what people don't understand about these souls. They are protected, covered, watched, not by men, but by the Most High. So when someone chooses to keep wounding them, to keep mocking their kindness, to keep trying to bend their spirit for their own gain, the divine rage activates. And once it does, nothing stays the same. Friendships fall apart. Secrets are exposed. Masks are ripped off. Because truth has entered the room. And it's not asking for permission anymore. But what's beautiful about this rage is that it doesn't stay. It comes in, restores what's been broken, and leaves peace in its place. It doesn't linger in bitterness. It doesn't live in hate. It's a visitor, a holy flame, a force that arrives with clarity, sweeps through the room like a storm, and then steps aside so the soul can rest again. And the chosen one, they don't gloat. They don't brag. They don't say, I told you so. Because this rage isn't about the ego. It's about alignment. About reminding the world that even the most patient hearts have limits. That even the most forgiving souls have boundaries. and that even divine love, when violated enough, will correct. This is why the chosen one walks carefully, why they speak slowly, why they stay quiet in moments when others explode. It's not because they are passive, it's because they are powerful. They are aware of what lives inside them. They carry ancient justice, not petty anger. So they wait, they pray, they observe, until the time comes when silence is no longer sacred, and action becomes necessary. And when that time comes, the divine rage doesn't miss. It goes straight to the root. It doesn't just destroy illusions, it uplifts truth. It doesn't tear down just to hurt, it clears space for healing. That's the kind of fire the chosen one carries. And if you've ever experienced it in yourself, you know exactly what it feels like. That moment where your tears dry, your hands steady, your voice lowers, not out of weakness, but out of sacred control. Your vision clears, and you're no longer emotionally entangled. You've risen above the game. You're no longer looking for apologies. You're not seeking validation. You're executing correction, not with cruelty, but with clarity. And that's when people who thought they had power over you suddenly realize they were playing chess against a storm. There's a silence that carries more weight than 1,000 words. A stillness that's louder than shouting. A presence that doesn't beg to be heard, because it simply is. That's the presence of a true chosen one. These are not the ones who fight for attention. They don't waste their breath arguing with people committed to misunderstanding them. They don't battle demons with chaos or meet narcissists with frantic explanations. No, they don't fight, they command. And when they speak, it's not from ego, it's from alignment, from depth, from divine clarity. The energy shifts not because they raised their voice, but because their spirit stood up. There's something in their voice that carries authority, not because they studied power, but because they walked through fire to earn it. You can feel it the moment they enter a room. The tension changes. The air tightens. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because some people walk in and demand to be seen. But a chosen one, they walk in and everything else gets quiet. They don't need to prove themselves. They don't need to clap back. They've outgrown the cycle of fighting every attack that comes their way. Instead, they've mastered the art of spiritual presence. A force that speaks louder than any insult. That's why narcissists hate them. Narcissists thrive in chaos. They're experts at baiting arguments, drawing others into confusion, getting reactions. That's where they feel powerful. But when the chosen one refuses to play, when they stop responding with emotion, when they don't flinch at the manipulation, don't react to the silence games, don't shrink under pressure, the narcissist loses their grip. Because their power was never real. It was borrowed from your reactions. And when you stop giving them that fuel, they crumble. They come face to face with a truth they've tried to avoid. They were never in control. They just borrowed your energy while you were still healing. But now, you don't need to fight. Because you know, you're not the same person you were when you first met them. Back then, you needed to be heard. Needed to explain. Needed to be understood. But now you understand yourself. And that changes everything. You've shifted from defense to dominion. You don't walk into spiritual battles hoping to survive. You walk in knowing you're covered. You walk in with authority. And it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's precise. Measured. Grounded. That's what real power looks like. You see, chosen ones don't fight flesh. They don't waste time with surface-level drama. They understand the assignment is deeper. This isn't about ego. It's about energy. And when you've been through what they've been through, spiritual warfare, betrayal, heartbreak, generational pain, you don't rise up with rage. You rise up with reverence. You walk in awareness of the unseen. You speak with the knowledge that your voice carries weight. Not because of who you are, but because of who walks with you. You're not backed by popularity. You're backed by presence. That's what commands a room. This is why the chosen ones can shift entire atmospheres without raising a hand. Their energy exposes hidden lies. Their stillness reveals anxious intentions. Their calm confronts chaos. And their authority, it silences noise that once controlled them. Because the more healed they become, the more precise their energy gets. They are no longer wasting power on things that don't matter. They are no longer explaining themselves to people who don't want to grow. They are no longer afraid of walking away from tables where their soul isn't on it. That's command. That's spiritual maturity. That's what scares the narcissist, and what confuses the enemy. When a chosen one speaks, it's not about volume, it's about vibration. The words don't just land in the air, they land in the spirit. They carry truth. And truth doesn't need a defense. It doesn't need to fight for approval. It just is. That's what they're walking now. And if you're one of them, you know exactly what I mean. You've noticed how people look at you differently. Not because you're flashy, but because you're grounded. You've noticed how manipulators don't last long in your presence, not because you called them out, but because your energy called their bluff. You don't attract chaos anymore, not because it stopped trying, but because it can't breathe in your clarity. And yes, you've paid the price for this power. You've lost people. You've been lied on, misjudged, mocked for your silence, accused of being cold. But what they call cold is really consecrated. It's not distance, it's discernment. You've learned to sit in silence because you know your voice is a sword, and swords don't swing unless they are called. You've learned that not every battle deserves your attention. Some things are too low for your energy now. Some arguments are beneath the spiritual rank you've been assigned. And that's not arrogance, it's awareness. So when people say, "Why don't you fight back?" or "Why didn't you say something?" you already know the answer. Because you don't fight. You command. You don't beg for peace. You walk in peace. You don't chase validation. You carry confirmation. And that's the shift that changes everything. That's what moves you from being a victim of energy vampires to being a guardian of your own field. That's when everything around you starts responding to your presence. Because when you're aligned, you don't have to knock. Doors open. If you've ever wondered why narcissists couldn't stay around you for long, why demons manifest around your presence, why manipulators feel uncomfortable in your silence, it's because you don't meet energy, you govern it. You walk in a spiritual awareness that makes lies feel exposed. You walk in a truth that doesn't scream, it settles. And people who thrive in illusion can't breathe in that atmosphere. So never confuse your silence for weakness. Never second-guess your decision to walk away quietly. Never let someone convince you that choosing peace over drama means you've lost. The ones who fight need to prove something. The ones who command, they already know. And you don't fight anymore, because the room shifts the moment you stand. At first, the narcissist thinks it's all going according to plan. They see the chosen one as just another soft soul, another kind, compassionate, wide-eyed empath ready to be molded, manipulated, and drained. They misread the silence as submission. The compassion as weakness. The loyalty as naivety. And so, they begin their game. The love bombing, the gaslighting, the hot and cold cycles, the subtle devaluing. To the narcissist, it's a dance they've mastered, a performance they've led with countless others. But what they don't see, what they never see, is that this soul is different. This isn't just another target. This is someone who has been chosen, marked by something divine, and sent here with spiritual authority hidden beneath the surface. And soon, very soon, the narcissist begins to feel it. At first, it's subtle. A resistance they can't explain. A strength that doesn't crack. A silence that feels like a warning instead of surrender. And that's when it begins. The reversal. Because the narcissist doesn't realize that every attack, every lie, every twisted word isn't breaking the chosen one down. It's waking them up. See, you don't become chosen by accident. You don't carry that kind of light without surviving darkness. These people have already faced demons long before the narcissist ever showed up. Their tears have watered entire lifetimes. Their prayers have reshaped timelines. They've battled depression, betrayal, abandonment, not just from people, but from entire bloodlines. So when the narcissist starts their game, they don't realize they're activating an ancient soul that was simply laying low. At first, yes, the chosen one may cry. They may beg. They may try to make it work. But that's not weakness. That's their divine heart on display. That's love trying one last time before it turns into wisdom. And when it finally turns, when the last straw is pulled, when the illusion finally snaps, that's when the narcissist begins to feel something they've never felt before. Spiritual fear. Not fear of violence. Not fear of exposure. But fear of irrelevance. Because now, the chosen one no longer sees them through eyes of hope. Now they see clearly. And what was once magnetic becomes repulsive. And that shift is haunting. The narcissist, who once controlled the energy, now chases it. They try to pull the chosen one back in with guilt, with promises, with false accountability. But it's too late. The reversal has happened. The same empathy that kept the chosen one tangled now becomes a wall of discernment. The same loyalty that once endured the abuse now rejects it completely. The narcissist realizes, this person they thought they broke, they just built themselves. Stronger, sharper, wiser, and worse, untouchable. This is the regret they don't talk about. Not the regret of love lost, but the regret of power lost, of supply lost. The narcissist realizes, too late, that they didn't just lose a person. They lost someone who saw the best in them, someone who prayed for them, someone who tried to help them heal, even while being hurt. And that kind of soul, you don't find it twice. So the regret becomes a shadow. It lingers. They stalk in silence, watch from afar, pretend to have moved on, but they haven't. Because deep down, they know they'll never again be seen with that much purity. They'll never again be given that much grace. And they'll never again feel that close to the light. The chosen one moves on, but they don't forget. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. They don't return, not because they hate, but because they finally love themselves enough to stay gone. And their silence, it echoes, it haunts. Because for narcissists, silence is not just rejection, it's irrelevance. And nothing wounds the narcissist's ego more than realizing their manipulation no longer works. Their voice no longer matters, and their absence no longer leaves a mark. That's why they regret it. Because what started as a game turned into a spiritual confrontation. What began as a casual manipulation became a mirror, and they couldn't face what they saw. The chosen one revealed their own emptiness, and instead of healing, they attacked. Instead of growing, they lied. And now, they are left with the memory of someone they couldn't control, couldn't break, and couldn't keep. So if you're a chosen one who's been targeted, drained, discarded, hear this. Your pain wasn't in vain. Your tears weren't wasted. You didn't lose yourself. You found yourself through the fire. You were never weak. You were awakening. And the moment you stopped responding, the moment you stopped explaining, the moment you turned your back and meant it, was the moment the narcissist finally realized. They awakened something they can never control. They triggered the fire of a soul sealed by divine hands. And they'll spend the rest of their lives knowing they messed with someone they should have never touched. Some people carry light. Others carry knowledge. But the rarest ones, the true chosen ones, they carry presence. And it's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't beg to be seen. It just is. The moment they enter a room, something shifts. You can't always explain it, but it's felt. A sudden stillness, a quiet intensity, and then discomfort. Not for the innocent, but for the ones hiding behind masks. Because these chosen ones don't need to speak to expose evil. They don't have to accuse anyone. They don't need proof or confrontation. Their aura alone flushes out deception like smoke reveals fire. They carry an unseen spotlight that makes snakes squirm and shadows tremble. And that's why they are often misunderstood. Because evil feels naked in their presence. This isn't just about intuition. It's deeper. It's spiritual X-ray vision. The ability to see past words, past smiles, past performances. They walk into a room, and suddenly what was pretending to be pure can't hold form. It cracks. It slips. It glitches. Because you can't keep up a lie when truth is standing next to you. And that's exactly what these souls carry. Not just truth in language, but truth in energy. Their vibe isn't trendy. It's timeless. It reminds people of something ancient, something holy, something watching, That's why the narcissist avoids their eyes. Why the covert manipulator suddenly stumbles. Why the secret abuser gets nervous when they show up. Because deep down, evil always knows who sees through it. You see, when you've survived spiritual warfare, betrayal, loss, and emotional chaos, you don't just become stronger, you become transparent. Not just to others, but to darkness itself. These chosen ones didn't just read about discernment, they bled for it. They lost fake friends, false lovers, and entire belief systems before realizing their aura was never meant to blend in. It was meant to unmask. They are spiritual lie detectors. Not because they are perfect, but because they've been broken enough to stop pretending. And when someone walks in holding nothing but truth, everyone still holding secrets gets agitated. The narcissist feels it immediately. At first, they may try to charm or test the chosen one, thinking it's just another empath to manipulate. But something doesn't land. The usual games don't hit the same. The flattery doesn't pull energy. The subtle digs don't shake their core. And slowly, the narcissist realizes, I can't move them. That's where the fear begins. Because control is the narcissist's drug, and the chosen one is immune. Not because they're emotionally detached, but because their spirit is anchored somewhere the narcissist can't reach. And so the narcissist either panics or flees. They'll accuse them of being too intense, too serious, or too much. But the truth is, they were simply too clear to manipulate. But here's the part people don't often talk about. The chosen ones don't try to expose evil. They're not on a mission to hunt it down. They don't go around calling people out or shaming the broken. Their aura does it on its own. Just being in the room, they create a mirror. Not intentionally, but by default. And in that mirror, people can either grow or recoil. That's why these souls attract extremes. Some will be drawn to their peace, their depth, their grounding energy. Others will be repelled, not because of anything wrong, but because of what gets revealed. Evil hides in charm, in influence, in subtle power games. But none of that survives in the presence of spiritual purity. That's why chosen ones are often accused, attacked, or even exiled, not because they did anything wrong, but because their existence is inconvenient. They disturb what was hiding. They uncover what was pretending. They don't try to, but they can't help it. It's like their soul is coded to light up shadows. And when those shadows aren't ready to be seen, they fight back. Not always with fists, but with slander, manipulation, smear campaigns, and silence. But the chosen one has learned not to fight that battle with fire. They've learned to stand still, to hold their peace, to walk away with calm, because their job isn't to prove, they are the proof. The more aligned they are, the louder their aura becomes. Not loud in sound, but loud in impact. The kind that leaves people thinking days after the encounter. The kind that causes sleepless nights and guilty hearts. The kind that makes abusers afraid they'll be exposed, not by words, but by witness. And make no mistake, these chosen ones are not always famous, not always public. Sometimes they're the quiet co-worker, the calm sibling, the stranger on the train whose eyes hold galaxies. They don't need platforms. They are the message. They don't seek followers. They walk in clarity. And wherever they go, energy moves. Masks fall. Truth trembles. Not because they push, but because they are pushed by something higher. So if you've ever walked into a room and felt people shift, if you've ever been treated like a threat without saying a word, if manipulators always seem uneasy around you, if your calm causes nervous laughter, if your silence makes liars ramble, then maybe you're not just intuitive. Maybe you're one of them. The ones who don't need to fight to reveal. The ones who don't need to speak to be heard. The ones whose very aura exposes evil, not out of pride, but out of purpose. Some people are taught power. Others are given it through titles, positions, or influence. But the rarest of all, the chosen ones, are born with it. Not the kind of power that's loud or flashy. Not the kind that seeks attention. But the kind that even darkness won't cross without consequence. These are the ones born with a spiritual code. A seal written into their soul before they even took their first breath. They didn't ask for it. They didn't even know they had it at first. But the spiritual realm knew. The darkness knew. And that's why the attack started early. That's why their lives were marked by isolation, betrayal, repeated attempts to break them, because they carried something holy the enemy couldn't touch, only tried to corrupt. There's an unspoken law in the spirit world. Do not touch what's sealed. There are souls who walk this earth surrounded by something that cannot be explained in human words. It's not armor, it's essence. A code embedded deep within their being that sets off alarms in the unseen. Even demons recognize it. Not with fear in the way humans understand fear, but with caution. Because to violate this seal is to invoke consequences they are not ready for. And so, darkness tries to work sideways. Through people, through pain, through manipulation. Not because it has authority over these souls, but because it can't reach them directly. These chosen ones carry a spiritual do not disturb sign, etched by the divine. And yet, most of them have no idea for years. In fact, they often wonder why they are attacked so much, misunderstood so often, betrayed so deeply. They think maybe they are cursed. Maybe they are doing something wrong. But the truth is, they were recognized before they recognized themselves. Their light caused turbulence in spiritual places. Their presence made hiding places uncomfortable. And so the enemy used every tactic possible to distort them, delay them, discourage them, hoping they would never discover the seal they carried. But eventually, something shifts. The pain turns into discernment. The isolation becomes intimacy with the divine. The heartbreak becomes clarity. And in that process, the chosen one stops seeking validation and starts walking in authority. Quietly, humbly, but unmistakably. Suddenly, what once confused them becomes obvious. The patterns, the attacks, the spiritual warfare. It all begins to make sense. Because you can't be born with this code and expect to have a normal life. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were sent, not for applause, but for alignment. And here's the thing, darkness doesn't just recognize the code. It respects it. It watches it. It studies it. Not because it wants to admire it, but because it fears what it can't control. The sealed ones walk with a kind of permission that can't be copied. Their prayers shake atmospheres. Their words carry weight beyond human ears. Their dreams warn. Their silence convicts. They are portals of divine presence. And evil knows that. That's why so many narcissists are drawn to them. Not out of love, but out of spiritual hunger. They want to feed on the light they cannot create. They want access to a power they do not understand. But they always end up falling short, because you cannot steal what was sealed. And when these chosen ones awaken fully, when they stop doubting their calling, stop dimming their voice, stop making excuses for the way the world responds to their energy, that's when the seal activates publicly. That's when doors open without effort. That's when people start confessing things around them they never asked to hear. That's when rooms fall silent when they walk in, not out of fear, but because truth just entered the atmosphere. They don't have to shout to be heard. They don't have to demand respect. It arrives before they do. But let's be clear, this isn't ego. This isn't arrogance. In fact, most of these souls are deeply humble. They don't want attention. They are not trying to be seen. They are just trying to stay aligned, stay peaceful, stay obedient. And that's exactly why the seal stays strong. Because it wasn't given for fame. It was given for function. It's not about status. It's about assignment. And those who are truly sealed know this. They don't move unless the Spirit leads. They don't engage unless the mission calls. And they don't fight every battle, because their presence alone handles most of the work. You may have felt this all your life. That strange sense that something's watching over you. That no matter how close the enemy gets, something always pulls you back from the edge. That when people tried to destroy you, the damage didn't last. That when you were about to give up, peace found you in the silence. That's the seal. That's the code. That's the spiritual boundary the darkness can't explain and cannot cross. And if you've been told you're too intense, too serious, too sensitive, or too different, don't shrink. You were never meant to be digestible to everyone. You were born to disrupt what's fake. You were born to carry a code that darkness could never copy. And every time you speak truth, every time you pray with clarity, every time you walk away from chaos instead of feeding it, your seal glows brighter. You remind the enemy that not everyone can be tamed. Not everyone is for sale.